Hey, what's up everyone? This is Brian and Benjamin Tercetto. We are local brothers and realtors here in the beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico. If this is your first time on this channel, we are here to get you educated on what it's like to be a Santa Fe local, and more importantly, to help you become a local by serving you throughout the entire home buying experience. So make sure you tap that subscribe button so that way you're notified every time we release a new video. If you're planning on making a move to Santa Fe or anywhere in New Mexico for that matter, make sure you give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. You can even leave us a comment down below. However you want to get a hold of us, we're here to serve you in your move to the Santa Fe area.
We want to talk about the elephant in the room. Is right now the worst time to buy a home? There are a lot of opinions out there right now with everything that's going on in the world. The Feds have increased interest rates in an effort to bring some stability to the economy. We're teetering on the edge of a third world war. Inflation is crushing all of us at the gas pump, the grocery stores, and just about everywhere else. Plus, home prices are at an all-time high. So in this video, we're going to focus on 3 questions to help us get a better understanding of whether or not right now is the worst time to buy a home. Let's get to it. All right, question number 1, when is the bubble going to burst? I'm sure you've heard this one, and we hear it all the time. There's a group of people that have put off buying their home because they fully expect the market to crash, along with the prices to drop off the face of the earth. Now, we understand where these people are coming from because we all remember the last housing crash. It hurt a lot of people, but it is really important to understand the differences between then and now. Ultimately, no one can predict the future with 100% accuracy, but data can help us paint a pretty reliable picture. So let's take a look at what's really going on, because you know what they say about opinions and certain body parts. Everyone's got one, but most of them are stinky. Yeah, decode that joke. All right, in all seriousness now, prior to the 1950s, less than half of the country owned their own home. However, after World War II, many returning veterans used the benefits afforded by the GI Bill to purchase a home. And since then, the percentage of homeowners throughout the country has increased to a current rate of 65.5%. That strong desire for homeownership has kept home values appreciating ever since. Now, if you look at how prices spiked prior to 2006, it does look a bit like the current spike in prices over the past 2 years since COVID. This is what has led some people to be concerned that we're about to see a similar fall in home values, just like we did when the bubble did finally burst then. But we need to look at what actually happened last time and what's actually happening today. See, back in 2006, foreclosures flooded the market, which drove down home values dramatically. The 2 main reasons for the flood of foreclosures were, number 1, that many buyers were not actually truly qualified for the mortgage that they were approved for, which led to more homes turning into foreclosures because they simply could not afford it. And 2, there were so many homeowners cashing in on the full equity of their homes so that they could buy things like RVs and boats and go on vacations, which is just bad financial planning. Don't do that. But they did. And then when prices dropped, they found themselves in an underwater situation where the home was worth less than the mortgage on the house and their money was just gone. Many of these homeowners had to walk away from their homes, leading to more foreclosures and further price drops, which just lowered neighboring home values more and more. And this cycle continued for years. Now, there are 2 big reasons that today's market is nothing like the one that we experienced 15 years ago. Reason number 1, today's demand for homeownership is real. It's not being artificially generated. See, running up to 2006, banks were creating artificial demand by lowering lending standards and making it just way too easy for anybody to qualify for a home loan or to just refinance their current home. Today, purchasers and those refinancing a home, they're facing much higher standards from mortgage companies. There's always a risk when banks lend money, which is why they charge interest. However, leading up to the housing crash 15 years ago, lending institutions took on much greater risks in both the person and the mortgage products that they were offering. They're basically handing out money to anyone and everyone that filled out an application. That led to massive defaults, foreclosures, and thus falling prices. Essentially, the whole thing was rigged to fail. And sadly, many of those lenders did profit by selling those homes in later years. It was bad, but that's not what's happening today. Today, the demand for homeownership is real. It's generated by a reevaluation of the importance of home due to the worldwide COVID pandemic that we've all been experiencing together. Now think about it. People are spending significantly much more time in their homes since COVID. And what most of us are realizing is that our current home situations, they don't lend themselves to our new realities. It just isn't fun having to set up your office in a closet, but many people have had to do exactly that. Also, lending standards are much stricter in the current environment. Purchasers actually have to be able to afford the mortgage that they're taking on by demonstrating a much lower debt to income ratio than back in 2006. So there's much less concern about possible defaults on mortgage. And if you're worried about the number of people that are still in forbearance since COVID, you should know there's little to no risk of that causing an upheaval in the housing market today. Even though a lot of people are betting on it, there won't be a flood of foreclosures because people in forbearance can actually sell their homes right now easily to a market that has an extremely high demand and very little inventory. And that, my friends, is the most important factor in what's going on with our market. It's basic economics 101. Supply and demand are continuing to drive a very strong housing market. So when you read articles about how home sales are declining, it's not because the demand isn't there. It's because there aren't enough homes for sale. There are still more people looking to buy than there are people willing to sell. And with the cost of building materials for new houses just continuing to rise, there isn't an end in sight for that demand to shift. So that's reason number one. Reason number two for why today is much different than when the bubble did burst in the past. People aren't using their homes as ATMs like they did in the early 2000s. Like we already mentioned before, when prices were rapidly escalating in the early 2000s, many thought that it was never going to end. So they started to borrow against the equity in their homes to finance new cars, RVs, boats, and vacations. And then when the prices did start to fall off, many of these homeowners were underwater, leading many to have to abandon their homes, which increased the number of foreclosures. Homeowners have not forgotten the lessons of that crash as prices have skyrocketed over the last few years. People are being smarter with their money and with refinancing. Black Knight reports that tappable equity, which is the amount of equity available for homeowners to access before hitting their maximum 80% loan-to-value ratio, it's more than doubled compared to 2006, meaning people are now borrowing 50% less equity than they were in 2006. The major reason for the housing crash 15 years ago was the tsunami or foreclosures. And again, many people are waiting for that to happen again this time around. The issue is that with much stricter mortgage standards, a historic level of homeowner equity, and significantly more buyers than there are houses for sale, the idea of a massive foreclosure issue impacting today's market is just not realistic. So if you're waiting for the market to crash, you're very likely going to be waiting for a long time, and by the time you realize it, prices will have increased even more.
So this leads us to question number two. Are the houses overpriced, and what is going to happen with future values? Many consumers are wondering what will happen with home values over the next few years. As we mentioned before, some are concerned that the recent run-up in home prices is going to lead to a situation similar to the housing crash 15 years ago. The reality is that appreciation will slow down from the double-digit equity gains that the market has seen over the last 2 years, and it has to slow down because the growth isn't sustainable in the long run. That said, the majority of experts believe home values will not depreciate, which is where a home would lose value. To this point, Pulseonomics just released the latest home price expectation survey, a survey of a national panel of over 100 economists, real estate experts, and market strategists. And they forecast that home prices will actually continue appreciating over the next 5 years. They expect an average of 9% appreciation by the end of 2022. Santa Fe expects another double-digit year, followed by another average 5% increase in 2023, which will then level out with an average 3% increase year over year. And again, Santa Fe expects to be ahead of the average equity increase. What does this all mean for you as a buyer? Well, with a limited supply of homes available for sale and both prices and mortgage rates increasing simultaneously, yes, it's going to be challenging to navigate in this market as a buyer. But the most likely reality is that buying a home sooner rather than later will have serious benefits. Simply put, if you wait to buy, you're going to pay more and gain less in the future. However, if you buy now, you'll actually be in the position to make future price increases work for you. Once you buy, those rising home prices will help you build your home's value and, by extension, your own household wealth through the expected increase in home equity. As an example, let's assume you purchased a $360,000 home in January of this year, which is the national median sales price according to the National Association of Realtors. If you factor in the forecast for the average appreciation we just talked about, you might be able to accumulate $96,000 in household wealth over the next 5 years. And that's using the national average. That number would increase significantly if you are buying a home at the Santa Fe average, which is actually closer to $600,000. Something to consider as well, if you aren't buying, you're probably renting, which means this potential equity is going into your landlord's pockets instead of your own. Think about that for a second.
Alrighty, question number 3. What about the high interest rates? If you're thinking about buying a home, you've probably heard mortgage rates are rising, and you've probably wondered what that means for you. And since mortgage rates have increased over 2 percentage points this year, it's natural to think about how this is going to impact your home ownership goals. Today, buyers are reacting in one of two ways. They're either making the decision to buy now before rates climb higher, or they're waiting it out in hopes that rates are going to fall again. Again, it's really important to look at some context that can help you understand why so many buyers are choosing to jump off the fence and into action rather than waiting to buy. Now, one factor that can help you make your decision to buy now is how today's mortgage rates compare to historical data with rates. While higher than the average 30-year fixed rate over the past 2 years, the latest rates are still comparatively low when you look at the bigger picture of where rates have been since 1971. If you're deciding whether to buy now or wait, this is important context to have because today's mortgage rate still gives you a window of opportunity to lock in a rate that's much lower than decades past. We have clients who bought their last homes with double-digit interest rates, so when they see a 5% rate, they're not blinking an eye at that. This really is a matter of perspective, and the reality is that news sells better when it makes people afraid. And like Warren Buffett points out, it's usually best to invest when everyone else is afraid. Plus, something to think about is that the interest rate on being a renter is 100%, which is a whole lot more than 5%, which in our opinion makes the decision a lot more simple to make. Now, the buyers who are springing into action now are also motivated to make their move because they know that rates have risen steadily this year, and they're eager to get ahead of further increases, which are expected to come. See, when mortgage rates climb, they impact the monthly mortgage payment that you'll have on the home that you're buying. Very simply put, it's likely going to cost you more to buy a home if you wait, because experts say mortgage rates will rise in the months ahead. So if you're ready and financially able to buy now, it may make more sense to get off the fence and make your purchase sooner rather than later. It's ultimately up to you, but at the end of the day, there's no perfect advice on when to buy a home because none of us have a crystal ball telling us exactly what the future holds. But this is what the data is pointing to. What's best for you depends on your goals, your finances, and your personal situation. For many buyers, rising mortgage rates are motivating them to act now and make purchases before the rates and prices continue to get higher. So give us a call so we can go over your current situation in order to figure out what the next move is for you.
So is now the worst time to buy? No, it's really not. Look, you can't go back in time to when interest rates or prices were lower. If the best time to do something was yesterday, the next best time is today. Sadly, fear keeps a lot of people from pursuing their dreams. And of course, you need to be smart about these decisions, but don't let fear be the reason you don't move forward. Be sure you have all the facts available and then do what makes the most sense for you in your future. Even with an unsteady economy, you can make moves that set you up for a much better and more secure future. And yes, homeownership in a consistently strong market like Santa Fe is an excellent move towards that future.
And thank you all for watching. And again, if you're planning on making a move to Santa Fe or anywhere in New Mexico, make sure that you give us a call, shoot us a text or an email, or leave us a comment down below. However you want to get a hold of us, we're here to serve you in your move to the Santa Fe area. Let us be your guide.